how do I start? Good evening, everyone. So it is great to be addressing all of you. Today we are going to have this webinar on study abroad. Especially we are covering applications, how to start, when to start, how to go about it. Even if you have not built up a huge profile, how do I start and how do I do applications? What are the timelines? What are the costings? So we'll cover everything in detail, and don't hesitate to ask any question. So I'll keep on answering your questions also in between. A lot of people, students are confused and they say that I'm not really getting the right this thing. Sometimes even parents are thinking whether India or abroad. So my first this thing, if your family is ready emotionally and financially, going outside is definitely a good option. Why? The quality of education you'll get, the practicality of education, the kind of internships, everything is somehow much better outside. Imagine you are studying in a country where alongside you there are people from 70 other countries. Yeah. Imagine that you are doing a co-op program like majorly in Canada, where you go after every 4 months, you go and work full time in Japan or US or Australia or India, wherever. Imagine that you're doing summer programs at some of the top destinations all over the world. So that is how international education pans out. So today, uh, I'll take all your queries also, and I'll try to give you a structure so that you can go back and you can think and finalize your career goals. Of course, as a company, as an organization, we help people with both India and abroad. We are a top career counseling firm, and we keep on working with schools and independently with parents and students to help them achieve their career goals. So I'm getting some questions, but just hold on for 5-10 minutes. Let me set the context, and then we'll take questions. Maybe if you can put up the PPT also. So yeah. So how do I start with this decision? There are a couple of things you need to think on. What is the kind of budget you're looking at when you're looking at applications abroad? Is your family comfortable with spending, say, 15 lakhs per annum, 25 lakhs per annum, 40 lakhs per annum, or you're an Ivy League aspirant and your family is ready for 60, 70 lakhs per annum? So it depends. Second, what is the ultimate goal? Do you want a PR, that is permanent residency? Do you want to go there and stay for 1 or 2 years and come back? Maybe your parents have a good business and you want to come back and join your own business. So what is the ultimate idea? So that you need to figure out, and then of course rest of the thing can follow. So third next thing is what kind of course you are looking at. In a country like US, you can have a mix of courses. I was just helping a student who was here with me with his parents. So I was helping him understand what courses are there. So and we were deep diving into courses. So maths, for instance, which one would be interested in, there are 16 different pathways I can take up. I can go into finance, I can go into computing, I can go to mathematical research, and so on. So for each area, there will be sub areas. A typical Indian student has really not researched so much in detail, and hence the decision making is tough. So we need to research that, we need to align that. Accordingly, your SOPs, LORs can be contributing. You will make it in such a way that it will create that impact with them. Okay, let's start off with this presentation. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. So a lot of students wake up late. If you come to me in March, so a lot of work would have happened even if you have to go in September. Yeah. So now also is honestly thoda late, but if you want to come, you should come really fast. Of course, if you are doing it by yourself, you should start immediately. Yeah. So documents, you need to really line up your documents properly. So it would include things like your previous certificates. So you have been active in music, you have certification from Trinity, you have played national somewhere, you have, so whatever you have to make it ready. So all your documents should be neatly organized so that there's no last minute running here and there. Also your academic transcripts. Maybe you need something from the school. You would definitely need a LOR from the school. Maybe you interned somewhere, so you need all of that. And then of course, uh, your counselor is not really able to support you, so that's also a challenge. Some schools have counselors, but they are dealing with, say, a school like DPS Arkipuram has more than 800 people applying, so you can understand how overworked the counselor would be. But some other schools, so yeah. So are you active? Some schools also give you dates. So I know a school which had given a date of July end. Yeah, for LOR. If you want a LOR, you should write to them. But yeah, generally a lot of schools are doing this all these things right now. And then options, opinions. So once you have finalized, don't keep on checking with a lot of people, because a lot of people might not have the perspective. Let's say you have gone for career counseling somewhere, you have come to us. So people like us have been doing the same work for now almost 2 decades. uh, there would be, let's say, somebody in US. So they've already told you, don't. So research yourself instead of checking with other people. Research yourself, so that is the better way to look at opportunities. Of course, for certain courses, like Pratibha is asking, I want to study psychology abroad, which country or college should I consider? So, Pratibha, I would think of a country like UK, Australia. Why do I say so? And my first preference will be for Australia, because Australia settling in can be easy. A country like Canada and US, for psychology, settling in might be tough unless you're looking at counseling. If you're looking at clinical or even school counseling, then it is not that easy comparatively. But UK, Australia, you'll get better opportunities. Also, if you're looking at health psychology, UK has NHS, which is a very well funded program, and hence you can build upon it. Anuj Singh, it depends. So some of my applications would be going like next month. For UK, most of my work would be done by next month. October 15th or November 1st will be the early deadline for US applications. So we'll be covering this in detail. So hang on till the very end, and then we'll tell you. Aruj will also share our numbers, so you can be in touch with us if you want further help from our team. Next, IELTS is not tough, Shubham. If you've been to an English-speaking school, it is not tough. Otherwise, go back to your school and ask them to refund all your fees for the last 10 years. IELTS is very easy. Come on. Tarveen says, I want to pursue career in designing or maybe architecture. So Tarveen, I would suggest you can look at combination of design plus management. Check out UAL in London. That's a pretty good university. Architecture, I would prefer US. Uh, they have some of the best colleges in the world. I can go to Australia also. Which country has maximum scope for economics? Eco people are accepted everywhere. So if you want a PR, my first choice is Canada, then US, then Australia. I want to study English and want to be a professor. So, Anandi Singh, you should do a bachelor's, then master's, and then you can, after master's, you can do a PhD kinds, or after master's itself, you can start working. If you want to work outside India, so TESOL is an exam which you can look at. Even if people have studied in India, they can do TESOL and then they can go. Spoiler plays, Australia is very good. There's a institute, the Hague School, Netherlands. That's pretty good for HM. Then Switzerland has very good hospitality institutions. Of course, if your final aim is a country like US, where a lot of Indians are there, even they have pretty good institutions in hospitality. Yeah, Urshita Gambhir, you can ask for masters also. We will be covering. I am there. I'll be helped by Sumer also. So Sumer will also be covering this. Nandini, you can look at majors in museumology. Like Harvard's history department is on the top in the world. So after history, I mean, people do specialize in museumology. You can look at IR, history IR kind of combinations. You could look at public services, public policy also. I've got, I think this one, Ayan Arora, Sumer will answer after some time. Okay, how do I decide the scope? How do I decide the course? So, scope is the first thing you look at. Areas like business analytics, finance, IT, computer science, maths, eco. All these areas are hot areas because we Indians have a big name in these areas. Yeah. And then of course you can look at curriculum. So with a student who's visiting, I was just looking at what exactly, like if you want to do maths, so some places you have got amazing applied maths combinations. Some of the places it is more mathematical research oriented. So depending on your need, then you can choose. You know, some countries like US, you'll get amazing array of majors and minors. Check Northwestern Chicago. How many? 4,300 courses. Can you imagine that? Yeah. And I personally, I love that university so much. I've gone there two times. Whenever I go to US, I try to go through Chicago. Also, the flights are like that from India direct to Chicago. I normally stay there for 1 or 2 days, visit university, but Northwestern Chicago on the side of a lake, amazing. 532 societies they have. They have subjects like you'll be shocked. They have subject called love. So a lot of young people would like to understand love. How many people take up that course? 800 students, 800. And I've kind of walked through that class when that class was happening while doing a campus tour. Yeah. So the majors and minors combination in a country like US is amazing. Of course, other countries also have similar this thing, although the level might not be as much, like 4,300 courses, but a lot of universities will have like 300, 400, 500 courses, and you can mix and match. What kind of training or exchange program you have? So you want to do 2 years here, 2 years there. For example, ISEC, you can do 2 years in Singapore, 2 years in France. You can do 2 years in Singapore, 1 year in France, 1 year in US, and so on and so forth. Satwik, the top universities in US are, Cornell, UC Berkeley, MIT. You can look at, UC, any of the other UCs like UC Davis. Depends on what marks you're getting, at what stage you are there at. Uh, Psychology questions, guys. Sumer will come. He'll cover. So just wait for some time. Spiral Place courses of humanities can be law, very, 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 very good course. You can look at IR, or someplace it is called global studies. Then you could look at psychology. You could look at combinations. If you're creative, check University of Waterloo. They have a very good course. BA Global Business and Creative Arts. Yeah. So you can look at these kind of options. Mehak Raheja, you should look at fashion management. I would say it will contribute better than fashion design. Even later on, you can run your own business. Even if you want luxury brand management, so fashion management will lead you to it. You don't need to do a course in luxury brand management. A lot of girls ask me that. Uh, yeah. So I would invite, at this stage, I would invite Sumer in the discussion. Sumer, there are some questions which you can address. Like Sumer, you can take up Noel's question. And yeah, exchange programs are really beneficial rhythm, very, very beneficial. Chota Bheem Club, that's a very funny name. Depends on which country. Like all the top universities have masters in economics. So Sumir, if you can quickly take up Noel's course and then we can move further. Noel's course, yeah.
For Noel, specifically, I understand your question. It would be beneficial if you write engineering instead of engineering technology, since that's more rigorous overall. Although the end result doesn't really matter when your stat output is specifically coming, but I would suggest that you should put engineering here in as such. Right. So next question is an exchange program beneficial? Rhythm Ahuja has asked this particular question. Yes, Rhythm, if you're specifically looking at an exchange program, yes, it is pretty beneficial because it adds a lot of value to your profile because it gives you an understanding of different courses, different, cultures, different traditions, different values. And this is what a lot of universities accept in the US comparatively, so it will be pretty good overall in terms of moving forward with it. Mike Raja has asked what are the best options for fashion. So specifically, if you're speaking typically in terms of the university requirements and things on those particular lines, I would suggest that you should probably look at Parsons, you should look at Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. You should also specifically consider Savannah College of Art and Design in the US. In the UK, it should be University of the Arts London. It should be also Glasgow School of Art, University of the Creative Arts. Singapore has LaSalle College of the Arts. Australia would have RMIT. So such kind of options would specifically, do justice to it. And I read your question also. So specifically, a lot of institutions are very strict about their requirements when it comes to the specific scores within the TOEFL exam. So if you're not meeting the requirement, you could still specifically see if there are any waiver opportunities that you could probably file in for. If not, then you would have to reapply. If in case you're not meeting the specific requirement over there. Okay, so Chota Beam Club has asked, what minor should I pursue with economic honors if I consider taking political science and history? Will that be a good decision? Yes, absolutely, because within economics also there are specializations like economic history and political economics, which would specifically do well with regard to your program. It also depends if you want to specifically orient this particular line comparatively. Um, so, Neelam, the question that you asked, what if we are not able to select our career? The best part about applying to any of the countries like the US and Canada is that you can apply as an undeclared student. So, your first 2 years are general in the US or in Canada, and then after that, specifically, you're going to be moving forward in terms of choosing a major. So, those first 2 years would be enough probably for you to make your decision in terms of specific careers. Yes, Pooja, you do require profile building for the UK, but specifically for the UK, you need to have activities and courses very relevant to the profile that you are basically taking up. So, for example, if it is business management, if it is finance, if it is economics, so any courses that you specifically done would be, relevant to this particular regard. All right, guys, let's move ahead with the presentation as well. And I'll be, covering all your questions. So if you just could hold that for a little bit, I'll continue to answer those. Right. So some of the most important aspects over here is specifically that whenever you're looking at a particular course, then the following aspects have to be looked at. So within that particular institution and within that particular country, if the scope is if the scope of your program is very strong, then that will help you in terms of acquiring further employment. So you have to be very sure of that. So for example, if you're planning on doing something like engineering in the US, that's a good course. But if you're planning on doing, say for example, biomedical engineering in a country like South Africa, might not be that great overall. So you have to really pick and choose in terms of the courses. The curriculum has to be also in line with whatever your expectations are. So for example, the main difference between the US and the UK curriculum is that the US curriculum is much more flexible. The US curriculum would give you a lot of opportunities to engage in projects. They would give you a lot of opportunities to engage in a lot of other extracurricular activities along with your course. But when it comes to the UK education system, that's fairly more restricted overall. So they have a final exam. In the US, the final exam may not be mandatory. It depends on one university to the other and things on those particular lines. You have to also make sure that your requirements are in place when it comes to your undergraduate degree, because what happens is that specifically if you do not research your requirements well, you may apply to a university and might just get a rejection at the end of the day. For instance, in Canada, even for applying for a course like BSc biology or something on those lines, you do require a subject of mathematics as such. So, making sure that the requirements are very much in place, that is something that you would have to also look at. You have to also understand what is a major minor combination. So, major combination, so majors are specifically your areas of concentration where you're taking maximum credits of a subject. So, for example, if it is, say, economics, so within economics, you're taking microeconomics, macroeconomics, all of those kind of flavors of subjects within economics. That will help you in terms of, specifically looking forward towards a particular major in eco. But minors are, small electives, less amount of credit carrying courses where you can choose something else also overall. Twinning and exchange programs are those programs wherein you can specifically move forward with regard to, studying in one country for your first year, second year, third year, fourth year, like this. For example, in Essex Singapore has twinning with Essex France. So you could have studied for first year, then in the second year, then in the third year, like that overall, right? So these are some aspects that you have to really consider while selecting a particular course. Next. Now, one of the main other aspects specifically that come into play is that country selection is an important aspect. Now, for example, you have to really introspect over here that what kind of countries do you wish to go for, because other different countries have different requirements in terms of specifically letting you stay in that country. So if your perspective is to stay, study in a country, then eventually come back to your home country or India or something on those particular lines, then higher studies only countries would specifically do well over here. Like for instance, for example, Singapore. But in comparison, if you're looking at higher studies and stay back, then the main aspect that you would have to look at is probably applying to the UK. You could also apply to the US, but US only for STEM programs. But if you're looking at higher studies with stay back with permanent residency, then the best two countries that come to our mind would be Canada and Australia. So these are some of the other areas. In terms of higher studies also, a few European countries do not allow to stay back, so you can definitely apply in those particular institutions. Like for example, you could apply to for Germany, you can apply to France, you can apply to Sweden, such countries wherein stay back may or may not be an option comparatively. Next. So another aspect that you have to really consider while focusing on the fact that you are going internationally is that, do you wish to study in a state or a public university, or do you wish to study in a private university? Now every country has different meanings attached to it. So for instance, if you're applying to say the US, the US would specifically mean that the state universities or the public universities are huge in size comparatively. They with thousands of students on campus and hundreds of students in class and things on those particular lines. But when you're applying to a private university in the US, there are chances it can be a smaller sized university which only a few students in class and 100 students on campus comparatively. Colleges also carry different meanings. Say, for instance, if I'm applying to the US, a college would mean a liberal arts college in the US. But when you're applying to Canada, a college would specifically mean a diploma granting or a certificate granting institution. It may not grant a bachelor's degree to you. So this is where you would have to really ideate. State, public, private colleges, these all can vary in terms of their costs and tuition fee as well. So you have to make a note of that specifically also. Next. So first and the foremost aspect when you're looking onto the lines of applying is that you need to first find an action plan. You need to first create your entire college grid, which would contain the following parameters. The first parameter being the name of the university, the course, what kind of a program are they offering, what is the duration of that program. So within that duration of that program, is it a 3 year long program, is it a 4 year long program? That should also be very sensitive to your entire liking as well. Then you should also be researching about the size of that institution. So maybe you have a very different perception of what is the size of that institution or something, so you should specifically map out the geographical area as well. Other than that, you should be also focusing more onto the lines of your cost of attendance or your tuition fee and your living costs. So for example, if you're applying to the US, so cost of attendance is specifically given together, which means your tuition and your living together for 1 year, whereas other universities might just give you a tuition fee on one page and the living cost on the other page. So for that particular reason, you need to research on this particular domain as well. The next aspect that you have to also consider is what is the ranking of the institution. So the ranking of the institution may matter to you, may not matter to you, but if it does, please add that as a parameter. For specifically assessing the ranking of the institution, I personally look at US news for the US based education. But if it is other countries, then I would specifically look at QS ranking, which is topuniversities.com. So for that particular reason, you would be able to analyze on those lines. Then you should also be focusing on reading through the courses curriculum of that particular institution. What are the entry requirements of that particular institution? So the way I like to do it is that I create an Excel file and I plan all of these things out on that Excel file. So the name of the university, the course duration, tuition, ranking, living costs, all of those kind of parameters would be specifically amazing for this particular child. Understanding. So you have all the information in one place. Now, if your information is going haywire, it may be that you're not taking the right decision specifically for the university. So, as an exercise, you should always look into this particularly also. Next, so the most important aspect here when you're applying to a lot of international universities is that there are certain timelines that you have to associate yourselves to. So, for example, if you're applying to the US, some universities in the US they begin their application process in the month of August of every year. Then, typically in the month of September, UK, Australia they keep on opening up. In the month of October, Canada largely opens up as well as Singapore. So this is how different countries they keep on opening up. In the month of November, that is specifically on the 30th of November, UC's University of California in the US, all the nine colleges their deadlines specifically come into play. But in December, specifically University of Texas, all the main campuses they start shutting off in terms of deadlines. In January, all the application deadlines for UK and Canada and some in the US, all of those kind of aspects they start closing down. Whereas in the month of March specifically, Singapore universities would start closing down in terms of all those kind of aspects, right? So this is how it is. So we'll just take a few more questions in between. I can see the comment section also. So Bibin Kumar has asked, Sir, I'm in class and I would want to push my career as a scientist. So what is the scope of this? Bibin, that also depends on which area of science are you wanting to concentrate in. So for example, if you're planning on concentrating onto the lines of the US or something on those particular lines, so a lot of other institutions like probably Caltech, Georgia Tech, they'll be amazing in terms of that thing also. Noel has asked if someone wants to pursue engineering outside India without giving SAT, so what is the procedure? Can I apply to colleges directly, specifically in Canada? Yes, you can. The terminology is different. If you're applying to a college in Canada, that means that you're applying for a diploma program. But if you need to apply for an undergraduate or a master's program in Canada, then you would have to specifically apply on those particular lines as such, right? So the main thing is that SAT is not a requirement in Canada. It's not required even. So you can apply to a lot of universities, but depending on your profile overall, as such. Right. So, what are the best minors to take with psychology? It depends on your interest specifically. It could be something in business, so you can combine human resources through psychology and business. You can combine marketing as well. So, those kind of options would do very well there. You can also combine it with biology, and you could specifically get into something like neuropsychology as well. Is SAT and IELTS really required for aerospace engineering at Caltech? No, SAT is not required at Caltech. Caltech has been test blind, uh, so specifically, and but IELTS would be required. IELTS or TOEFL, an English language proficiency exam will be required. Your 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th, all of those kind of aspects would be required. Aruj has asked, Sir, can you tell me the process of making the predicted mark sheet that your school will actually make it for you? It's not that you would be specifically, basically being asked to make, this thing. What is the scope of for a historian worldwide? Nandini has asked this question. Nandini, the scope is pretty awesome within the field of history, but it really depends on what is your concentration that you would specifically want to, particularly get into. So there's political history also, there's war history also, so those kind of aspects. Um, Sir, tell me career options in humanities. And then Anandini, there are many career options that you can specifically go in for. But the main aspect over here is going to be that what is your interest that would really matter rather than what are the career options. So you could probably get into social work, psychology, you could get into corporate social responsibility, you could get into sociology, you could get into, a number of other fields as well. So, Pratibha, your applications have just opened up for US. The deadlines have not come yet. right? So your applications have just started. So even if you're thinking on those particular lines, you can get in touch with us, right? And we can just help you in terms of finalizing on those particular lines, right? So other than that, Devanshi has asked, can you suggest something about architecture? Devanshi, if you're planning on applying for architecture, one of the first and most important things that you would have to look at is the accreditation of that particular university in terms of that country's architectural society. If it is, then you should specifically go, but you need to also prepare a portfolio for your architectural studies internationally. So that would specifically relate to many areas in the with regard to landscape and all of those kind of aspects. So Ayushi, if you want to pursue a career option in French, if you're doing it internationally, not a great option. I would suggest rather do it in India. But you could also, fall back on a professional program, so that if it doesn't work out, so you need to have a plan A and a plan B also. So Pawan has asked, could you please provide the requirements of pursuing a career in artificial intelligence? Depends on which stage are you at the moment. If you're after 11th, after grade 12th, you should specifically be pursuing an undergraduate program in computer science in a general format and specializing in artificial intelligence, and then taking up a super specialization in the form of a master's. So there is something called an MSAI, which is available at University of Waterloo. So this particular program will also be available as such. Noel, no, universities in Canada do not consider JEE scores. However, if you're doing very well, then your Nanyang Technological University in Singapore will consider your JEE advanced scores. Certain institutions in Germany also consider your, JEE main score as JEE advanced scores. All right, let's continue forward. Overall, next. So let's quickly highlight a few application processes that take place in the US as well. So moving forward, next, if you could just go on. Yeah. So the first and the foremost thing that you have to really understand when you're applying to the US is that there are three types of deadlines in the US. So for example, the first deadline could be the early deadline. Now, depending on the university that you're applying for, it can be early decision or early action, right? So typically I've seen in my experience that private universities only offer early decision, and only a few of them offer it. But with early decision, it is a binding contract, which specifically means that if you're an early decision student applying over there, so you're signing a contract with the university that you will withdraw from all other choices, regardless of whichever university you're getting through internationally, whether in the US or internationally. So you would have to withdraw from all other choices. So that is the contract you sign with the universities. A lot of students ask me, what if we bust that contract? You can't. There can be legal action on you. So you have to be very careful about that particularly. Whereas early action can be restrictive or non-restrictive. So if you're applying to a private university as an early action university, there are chances that the university might say that this. So if you're applying to my university, you cannot apply to any other private university in their early deadline. Comparatively, public universities are non-restrictive. That means that they don't have any sort of policies with regard to whether you can apply to another university or not, but it should not be a private university with the same, with the restrictive deadline. Regular decision deadlines specifically are having nothing overall in terms of any sort of policies or something like that. So now what happens is that if you're applying to say an early decision university, so you can't apply to another private university in their early action, right? If you're applying to an early action university, you're free to apply to other universities in their regular decision deadline. So these are the scopes. What is the benefit of basically applying for early action or early decision is going to be specifically on the basis of whether it is binding. Sorry, whether it's going to give you a little bit of a boost in terms of your acceptance rate to that particular university. So this is what these universities typically look at comparatively, right? Next. So within the US, there are a few streams that specifically come into play. So because there are more than 3,800 colleges in the US, the main aspect that you have to first consider is that you can divide these universities into different families overall. So the most competitive universities in the US, of course, are the Ivy Leagues. So these are eight colleges in the US which are known for their football leagues. But over the time, they have also started becoming very competitive. But are they the top-notch universities in the world? Not all of them, as such. But in Ivy Leagues, the following universities exist. So Brown, Cornell, Columbia, Dartmouth, Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Penn. So all of these Yale. So all of these kind of institutions specifically would get into Ivy Leagues. The universities of California are nine institutions specifically. So the top three UCs are UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC San Diego. The middle three UCs would be UC Davis, UC Santa Barbara, and as well as UC Irvine. The last three, the safest UCs would be UC Merced, UC Riverside, and UC Santa Cruz. So these are the nine UCs that you would be specifically applying to. So UCs have a very different system that I'll explain a little in terms of the process later on. So universities of Texas, they specifically have institutions like University of Texas Austin, University of Texas Dallas, University of Texas, Sacramento, not Sacramento, sorry, University of Texas Dallas, University of Texas El Paso, like those kind of institutions. But the most sought after institution within this domain would be UT Austin. Their College of Natural Sciences is one of the best places that you can specifically, study. The next aspect is that there are certain private universities in the US as well. So private universities in the US are specifically, they can be large or small in size, but their orientation is typically more towards academics. So typically, if you're applying to private universities, so the some of the named universities are University of Notre Dame, Northwestern University, Northeastern University, Boston University. So such kind of institutions, New York University specifically, they do well in terms of everything overall. Then, other than that, if you're applying to public universities are state-run universities. They're funded by the state, so their research orientation is stronger. Although they are more on extracurricular activities as well as on academics together. So that is what public universities specifically focus on, right? Next. So the few application systems through which you can specifically apply to a lot of these institutions would be Common App. So Common App is one of the most well-known application systems in the US. It houses most of the universities that you can apply for, but there is a cap of about 20 universities. You can't apply to more than 20 universities on the Common App. So the Common App has, various sections. It's a very detailed form wherein they ask you about your parents, their education background, which year did they graduate in, if you left one school and gone into the other, what was the reason that you were doing that? They'll house about 10 activities wherein you have to basically explain what did you do in those particular activities. There are essays specifically within the Common App that you have to write, and then there will be university specific essays. The same story goes for Coalition App, but the flagship aspect is Common App, of course. So latest editions like University of Texas at Austin, University of Southern California, they have started hosting their applications on Common App. University of Washington Seattle has started focusing on Common App. So Coalition App now is becoming a little redundant, and Common App is a little more easy to use overall. Apply Texas is majorly for Texas-based universities, largely the public universities. So Texas A&M, College Station, Texas University of Texas Austin, all of these kind of institutions can be applied through Apply Texas, or they can also be applied through the Common App. Apply Sunny. So state universities of New York specifically have their own portal, like University at Buffalo Sunny or Stony Brook University, those kind of institutions. My Illini is for Illinois-based institutions, that to the public ones. So University of Illinois Chicago, University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign, such kind of institutions are at My Illini. University of California specifically, so it is just like it's similar to the Ucas application, but a little more detailed than that, wherein there are four essays that you have to write out of eight prompts, and within those four essays, they'll be applied to all the institutions. So largely, UCs don't have separate applications. You can just pick and choose your courses, and you can specifically apply. Of course, if you're applying to something like University of California, Berkeley, and their MED program, so you may have to write a supplemental essay, but that will happen later. So this is how it specifically goes. So Common App, Coalition App. So if you're planning on applying to the US, you should definitely start off with that, because it's an important aspect in within your application to move forward with overall. Next. So one of the most important aspects, and I saw some people asking questions about scholarships as well. So within the US, there are three types of scholarships, rather two, but the first one has variations. So the first one is called financial aid. So within financial aid, there are two types of scholarships. One is need blind, the other is need aware. Need blind scholarships specifically relate to those scholarships which are wherein your need for a scholarship is not factored into the admission decision. That's correct. That means that specifically if you and I are applying to the same college with a similar profile and both of us have asked, one of you have asked for a scholarship and I haven't. So there won't be any sort of bias in terms of giving me admission. But whereas in need aware scholarships, if you and I have applied to the same college with the same sort of profile, I would say. So and if you have asked for a scholarship and I haven't, so I'll be the preferred candidate in terms of the admissions overall. So need blind and need aware scholarships are only available in certain private universities. So need blind scholarships are available in Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Dartmouth, Bowdoin College, Amherst College, MIT. These are the seven colleges that offer need blind. That means that there is no disadvantage in terms of you applying and getting through. Versus need aware scholarships, they're available in Northwestern Chicago. They're available in University of Notre Dame. They're available in probably New York University, New York University, Abu Dhabi. Such kind of institutions, specifically the private institutions, they offer the need aware scholarships overall. Then need blind and need aware is there under financial aid. That means that you would have to apply as an international student to College Support Services, which is CSS, through which you may have applied for your SAT. That will help you in terms of specifically filling up the form. Your parents would have to declare their income, the expenditures, all of those kind of things, and then the colleges decide overall. So that is how it goes. But for merit-based scholarships, there is no as such requirement. They don't look at your finances. So you may be earning 100 rupees in a year, or maybe you may be earning 100 crores in a year. It all purely depends on what is your extracurricular potential, your academic potential, all of those kind of aspects overall. Next. So typically, if you're planning on applying to the US, these are the things that they would look at. So for an undergraduate student, they would look at your class 9 to 12th mark sheets and transcripts. They would also look at your SAT or your ACT report if your college takes that. One side advice is that if your college is test optional, you may be at a disadvantage if you have not written SAT. But if it is test blind, there is no as such disadvantage. Your TOEFL or your IELTS score report, that will be important. Your references, so probably take three references from your school counselor, and two from your subject teachers as such, who are relevant and know you more specifically, your college essays as such. Certain extraneous documents, now you may have to go through every university that you're willing to apply for and see if there is anything extraordinary that they're requiring. Like for example, one of my students, when he had applied for Princeton, he got through. So he was asked to submit a term paper graded essay. So that was, how it was specifically going overall. As far as the postgraduate students are concerned, your college mark sheets and transcripts, some colleges may also require 12th mark sheets. Your certain references. So probably if you're a working professional, then two references from your office and then one reference from your academic this thing. Or otherwise, if you're a student, then specifically looking more onto the lines of all of this, you should be applying for two academic LORs and one professional LOR, maybe under whom you may have done an internship. So your TOEFL or your IELTS score report, all of those kind of things would be required. Your GMAT or your GRE score report, depending on if your program specifically takes it, and your CV or resume. So this is what institutions would specifically look at when it comes to the US side of documentations. Next, next. So moving on, the next aspect that you can also definitely consider is Canada. So Canada is very similar to the US in terms of their education, background. But the difference may be that Canada will have a final exam after every semester, whereas in the US, typically final exams may happen, may not happen depending on the particular university. Both are liberal curriculums, so that means that they get over in 4 years overall. But there's another advantage that comes into Canada, which is a co-op program, which is part-time internships that you can specifically do as a part of your program. So, depending on the program and the university, these can be available to you overall. Next. So, top universities in Canada would be University of Toronto, McGill University, University of British Columbia, University of Waterloo, Alberta, Simon Fraser University, and York University. So, University of Toronto typically has three campuses: St. George, Mississauga, and Scarborough. St. George is specifically more known for engineering and commerce related disciplines. Mississauga is known more for social sciences as well as business management related disciplines. And Scarborough is largely known to give co op to international students. Other campuses don't give co op per se, per program. McGill University, a fantastic institution if you're looking for engineering, but the area is more French dominated, so you may have to be a little careful in terms of planning that stuff out also. University of British Columbia has two campuses. One is the Vancouver campus, the other is the Okanagan campus. The Vancouver campus is supposed to be their flagship campus with the sort of school of business over there and things like that as such. University of Waterloo, they have a huge plethora of programs, typically known for a varsity of subjects that you can specifically study. So if you're, still thinking on the lines of what do you wish to study and you want to study something very specific, just go through the course catalog of University of Waterloo. There's so many programs that you can do. There's financial analysis, risk management, accounting, and financial management. There's probably you can do mathematics slash business administration. You can do a dual degree between computer science and business administration in those. There is something, a super specialized area within math called combinatorics, that is also over there. You can study actuarial sciences, mechatronics, all of those kind of areas as such. So within Canada, then there's University of Alberta now coming up very strongly as a particular course. Simon Fraser University, best known for computer science, best known for gaming. York University, a very holistic kind of an institution within Canada. So those are the kind of options that you can specifically consider. But with Canada, with most of the programs, if you're doing it as a Bachelor of Science, mathematics is a very strong requirement. So you may have to be very careful on those particular lines as well. Right. You can go next. Next. So typically, when you're applying to Canadian universities, you have something which is called the OUAC application. So the OUAC application specifically is for Ontario universities only. So if you're wanting to apply within the field of within the frame of Ontario, so whether it is University of Toronto, it is University of Waterloo, it is Toronto Metropolitan, York University, all of those kind of institutions, then you can apply through OUAC, McMaster, Queen's University, such kind of options would be specifically available. Educational Planner BC is specifically for British Columbia related institutions. So University of British Columbia, Simon Fraser University, University of Victoria, those kind of institutions specifically come under the fall of Education Planner BC. Uh, Pratibha, if you're giving psychology, where do you wish to study? Is it the US? If yes, then you would have to give the SAT exam. Yes. And then there are individual application portals, like McGill will have their own application portal and all of those kind of aspects. But with Canada, you need to really trace your email, because sometimes there's something that's lying in your email, you haven't checked on it or something on those particular lines, and your admission might just get cancelled. So you have to be very careful on those particular lines. So that's in a nutshell about the application process. Typically in Canada, they look at next. So for an undergraduate student, whereas the US is looking at the ninth, the 10th, and the 11th and the 12th exams, Canada looks at your 10th, 11th, your 12th half yearly, your 12th pre-board scores, and your 12th predicted scores if you're an undergraduate student. Your SAT or your ACT score, It's not mandatory, it is optional. If you wish to pursue it, I mean add it, you can add it, but it doesn't give you a lot of this thing. References, yes, you can specifically look at references as well. Essays or SOP, is what you would have to specifically also give, depending on whichever university you are applying to. So, for example, if it is references, I would first tell you that within University of Waterloo, only the math department requires a math reference. Other departments don't require a reference per se. Comparatively, if you're applying for, UBC, UBC would specifically require two references, one being academic, the other one being somebody who knows you within the community. And then there will be certain extraneous documents that the universities might require as such. Whereas in the postgraduate side, your college mark sheets and transcripts, specifically if you have a 4-year degree, pretty good. Otherwise, if you're coming from a NAC A accredited institution with a 78% and above, so there can be possibilities in terms of specifically getting through your 12th mark sheet also. Your references. So typically for references over here, they consider professional as well as academic references, but you may have to research that on the application portal. Your GMAT or your GRE score report, your TOEFL or your IELTS score report, and then of course your CV or your resume would be something that would go into play. Next. So coming on to the Indian side of things as such, because the UK has a very similar education system to India, or rather we have adopted it. You never know. So typically with regard to the UK, there are 24 institutions in the UK which are called the Russell Group family of institutions. So these are considered to be the most prestigious out of 900 institutions in the UK comparatively. So this comprises of University of Oxford, University of Cambridge, University College London, Imperial College London, King's, Manchester, Warwick, Birmingham, Leeds, Southampton, Sheffield, Queen Mary University of London. So, the works overall. So, there are about 24 institutions. On the Scotland side, you'll have Glasgow, you'll have Edinburgh. So, these are also a Russell Group institutions. University of Lancaster is also a Russell Group institution. Then, on the Northern Ireland front, you have Queen's University, Belfast, which is a Russell Group institution. So, such kind of institutions specifically comprise the Russell Group list. So, applying over here and getting through here and then basically, finding a job would be much easier rather than going to an institution which does not fall into this family of institutions as such. So whenever you're researching, also definitely look onto the lines of whatever aspects you can specifically research on. Next. So majorly when you're applying to the UK at an undergraduate level, so the application portal that you have to go through is the Ucas. So you can apply to a maximum of 5 universities within the Ucas. But if you're applying for any medicine or allied medicine field like MBBS, BH, MBCHP, or dentistry, or if you're planning on applying for something else, then all of these programs you cannot apply to more than 4 institutions in the UK overall. Within the UCAS form, you can apply to a maximum of 5 institutions, and your courses have to be similar because your personal statement will be the same that will be going through all the universities. So you can't mention the name of the universities, and the courses that you're applying for have to be on a similar front. Otherwise, in your personal statement, things might just be completely haywire as such overall. So this is where you would have to really move forward with. But for postgraduate students specifically, you don't apply through UCAS, but you largely apply through their own individual application portals, and that is where things are a little different as such. Next. So typically, if you are an undergraduate student who is applying to the UK, you can definitely apply to class. So your class 10 mark sheet, your class 12 predicted scores, your SOP, or rather your personal statement, one academic reference, your TOEFL or your IELTS score report. I prefer IELTS, that's far better. And certain other extraneous documents, maybe there's some tests that you may have to give depending on the university that you're applying for. But typically, UK does not count your 11 scores. They only look at your class 10th and your class 12 predicted. But of course, if you're planning to apply for University of Cambridge, then they'll also look at your class 11 scores. Your personal statement is about 4,000 characters with spaces when you have to add all of these particular details as to how did your interest in that particular course come into play, and so on and so forth overall. So these are, in a nutshell, those kind of aspects that you would have to specifically look at, right? Next, what do you get? So there are a few applications. So a lot of students overall they look at Australia as well as a very strong choice because Australia does very well in terms of social sciences, commerce, humanities, those kind of disciplines overall as such. So Australia has more than probably 200 universities, but the top notch universities are called the group of eight institutions. So within the group of eight institutions specifically, you can apply to a wide array of courses, institutions, because there are no common application portals in Australia. They're all separate as such. So that is what you can specifically look into. So applications in Australia specifically, so there are eight institutions which are considered to be group of eight, like University of Melbourne, University of Sydney, University of New South Wales, Australian National University, University of Western Australia. You can apply to University of Queensland, University of Adelaide. So these are eight institutions that you can specifically gun for within Australia, but depending on what your eligibility requirements are as such. Next. So these are the institutions that I listed. Melbourne, ANU, Sydney, Monash, Queensland. Queensland is best known for psychology. Monash is best known for business related programs. Sydney, you can whatever you're studying, whatever your subject combinations are, you can get into anything through Sydney. So because Sydney, the entry requirements are not stingy for courses or something like that. But instead, what they do is that they will give you foundation based courses. So maybe you're a humanities student wanting to study computer science, you can still do that. You may be probably a finance student wanting to get into engineering, right? That is also possible at University of Sydney. So this is how it specifically goes. Next. So the required documents for Australia, of course, your class 10th, your class 12th, there is a statement of purpose that has to be sent to the universities also. Your two academic references, sometimes at an undergraduate level, sometimes at a master's level, depends on, your entire process. Certain extraneous documents might also be required overall, maybe in terms of a portfolio if you're applying for a design related program. And of course, your transcripts or mark sheets. For those of you who are applying for a master's application, it's beneficial if you're taking up you know you know um, specifically like a no backlog certificate, because Australia has a cap in terms of the backlogs that one can specifically do. Spoiler plays, yeah, diplomas can be, but largely doing an undergraduate or a postgraduate degree would be better for a PR in Australia. They add towards your points a little more significant. Next. Moving on, applications in Singapore. So Singapore has three institutions: National University of Singapore, Singapore Management University, and Nanyang Technological University, which are considered to be their absolute top-notch set of institutions. And they're the most selective institutions also. So, for example, when you apply to the US, the Asians are blamed specifically for being very academically oriented, and rightly so. The stereotype is very distinct because Singapore being an Asian country overall, it requires you to specifically be very very academically oriented as a student. So within Singapore, typically if you're applying to a country like, if you're applying to NUS, NTU, SMU, you need to punch about 97%. You need to score a lot of Olympiads. You need to score a lot of APs, SAT, all of those kind of things. SAT is not required at all, but if you give it, that adds a lot of value to your academic profile as well. So this is how you can specifically move forward in terms of all of this also. Next. But one of the disadvantages, of course, would be that until unless you don't get a MOE tuition grant, you won't be allowed to stay back post your study in Singapore universities. But these are some of the popular institutions that you can apply for within Singapore. Of course, NUS, SMU, and NTU. Singapore Institute of Management, a good college. LaSalle College of the Arts for Design. ESSEC for Business. Curtin and John Hopkins are Australian universities having their campuses in in Singapore. So that is how you can specifically gun for it. Next. So typically, if you're applying to Australia, Singapore, your class 10th, your 11th, your 12th predicted scores, your statement of purpose, or rather now your essays would be something that they would look at. Your two academic references, of course, would be, asked for if you're applying for a master's application, but at an undergraduate level, they don't require references per se. Your TOEFL or your IELTS score, again for Singapore, to submit the application, TOEFL and IELTS is not required, but still give them that extra leeway so that they can make that particular decision very easily on your application. Then your SAT or ACT or GRE or your GMAT, either of the four. So, for example, for undergrad, SAT and ACT, either of the two. For postgrad, GRE or GMAT, depending on your program that you wish to apply for. And then there are the transcripts and the mark sheets also that you would have to specifically arrange from your college as well as your school overall. Next. So the main difference is this: one of my colleagues, Olivia, she heads the content division here. She's going to specifically, if, suggest and guide you on. Next. So certain types of scholarships specifically that these universities look at. So as I've covered with need-based scholarships and application-based scholarships, there are fellowships largely for master students and PhD students wanting to study, wherein they create their entire, the universities pay you a stipend to attend the institution. Your every tuition and your living, everything is free of cost during that time. Entrance-based scholarships are automatic scholarships wherein you don't have to specifically apply for a scholarship. The academic committee assesses your profile and then accordingly gives you a scholarship. And the application based scholarships, some universities specifically waive off their application fee for students, so that can be also a particular scholarship that you can also look at. Next. So accommodations are also an important aspect that you have to really consider. Wherein terms of private versus university, I always suggest that you should stay in university based accommodations. So, for example, in different countries, like for example in the US and in Canada, the campus sizes, and even in Australia, the campus sizes are huge. So that allows you to stay within campus overall, and that allows you to meet a lot of people from your class, seniors, juniors, all of those kind of aspects. So that is how. But within private accommodations, it can be very tricky because you may not know the other side of people. They might be from different walks of life and things on those particular lines. Within the UK, typically, since the campuses are smaller, mostly for their universities, so typically you stay off campus. So you may be staying a kilometer away, or 1.5 or 5 kilometers or 7 kilometers, depending on which accommodation you're specifically getting. But these accommodations are partnered by the university only. So that is how you can specifically gun for it. Next. So of course, after you completed your applications, you've gotten your acceptances and your accommodations and all those kind of aspects. Then the next aspect that comes into play is of course your visa, wherein if you're applying to the US, then you would have to apply for your F1 visa. For UK, you would have to apply for your UK Tier 4 visa in terms of the student base as such. Canada, you would have to apply for your study permit. Australia, those kind of things you would have to really get on with from the month of April onwards, so that your visa doesn't take that much of time. And even if it does, so it has enough cushion so that you're applying. I mean, when you're going next year September, you have enough time for you to get your visa specifically. So this is how you can specifically gun for it overall. Next. Next. Right. So, overall, with regard to the scholarship offers as well, the main aspect that you have to also consider is that whenever these universities make you a decision, you have to read through your entire process of scholarships very importantly. Because what typically may happen is that in a scholarship offer, comparatively, they might tell you that you're getting a scholarship, but it may be for only 1 year, or maybe it is an entire scholarship that is divided by four or maybe three or something on those particular lines. So just be a little careful on those particular lines as well. Like for example, one of my students, Saksham, he received a 1,80,000 Canadian dollar scholarship, so that was divided into four. So all the four, this thing is $45,000, $45,000, $45,000, and $45,000. Comparatively, Arushi Anand, when she received her scholarship, also, which is 20,000 Canadian dollars, which is a full tuition waiver for her scholarship. So specifically, with regard to her, it was, overall. One of my other students, Veer, when he got through NYU Abu Dhabi, so NYU Abu Dhabi gave him a financial aid, which was full ride, which specifically meant that he didn't even have to spend for his living costs comparatively. So those kind of options would specifically be very important for you to, in terms of understand. Apply for scholarships as much as you can, not because you may need it, but that may just boost your entire, credentials overall whenever you're applying later on for, any sort of job related areas as such comparatively. So that is how it specifically goes, right? So guys, that is it from my side. I'm just taking a few questions overall. um, so Neelam, Miss Neelam has said that what if you're planning to study abroad depending on scholarships? Yes, of course, that's also very fair comparatively. But see, the most important aspect that you have to consider here is that whenever you apply, so either apply to a few universities that fall into your budget and a few universities where there is a possibility of getting a scholarship, so that you're not, you're keeping all your options open comparatively in terms of all of this. Arjun, I would have to review your profile, in order to understand whether you'll be eligible for a financial aid as such, or maybe is it a good idea applying to Caltech for a financial aid or not. Depends on your, overall percentages in ninth, 10th, 11th, 12th, your extracurricular profile and all of those things. So Caltech, a side tech, only focuses more on research-based areas as such. And MIT, on the other hand, values more of Olympiads. Pratibha, that depends overall which country do you wish to study comparatively. Can you, sir, can I go with space scientist with taking PCB can be tricky. But the best place for you to apply would be the US, because the US does not have, specific set of entry requirements with regard to the subjects that you should have before applying to, if you're applying for an undergraduate degree. But one course that I would like to suggest to you would be uh, a astrobiologist if you're going through a PCB program. So an astrobiologist would do, far better with regard to the course curriculum subjects that you may have, Mr. Vipin. All right. Um, Right. So moving on, the next speaker for the evening is Dr. Olivia. Dr. Olivia is one of the senior most content writers specifically with us. She has a very strong overall presence in terms of correcting essays, suggesting essays. I mean edits and all of those kind of aspects. So she's going to present to you and help you in terms of understanding how to write your essays and essays. Over to you, Dr. Olivia.
Thank you, Sumer sir. So, yeah, I'll be speaking about essays and SOP drafting. So, essays and SOPs typically provides a window into your personality, the values you have, your personality, aspirations, and how your background aligns with the institution's values and community. Okay, next slide. All right. So the essay topics are determined based on a variety of things. So it would be inclusive of things like your cultural background. Your cultural background would talk about things like the experiences, the traditions, the values that have shaped your identity. Okay. So here you can share anecdotes that highlight your cultural influences, family background, and the things that have impacted your perspectives. The other life experience would mean the things that go beyond your cultural background. This can include your volunteering experiences, hobbies you're passionate about, and other significant life events. Academic interests would be the things that you can talk about to showcase enthusiasm for your chosen field of study. So you can talk about the internships you have undertaken around this, research work, projects, the things that you can highlight that talk about your academic aspirations. And finally, your aims in an essay. So here you talk about your long-term goals, short-term goals, and how the university that you're applying to, the resources over there, the faculty over there can position you to achieve your ambitions. Okay. So here, SOPs are determined effectively to improve your chances of admission to competitive programs. Okay, so it can either be through personal statement or a statement of purpose. So your personal statement typically explains who you are. It's not so much focused on academics mostly. In statement of purpose, you speak of your academic achievements as well, and the things around research, internships, and stuff like that. Okay, next. All right. So essays have the power to make or break your application. Yes. So even if you have a weak academic profile, if your essays are really good and your SOPs are top notch, you can make the cut. And even if your academics are very good, your marks are through the roof. If your essays are not written properly, they're not error free, or have grammatical issues or something, it might affect your admission chances. Next. All right, how to choose the right essay topic. Now, choosing the essay topic depends on your experiences. Suppose you have a very good, you're very talented. Suppose you are very good in music, or you have a very, you're skilled in guitar or something like that. Okay, and maybe you have done a very good volunteering activity. You have created an excellent social project. So it depends on your strengths. So the essay topic that you choose depends on the strengths you have and how you can portray that. Next. All right. So in the US, you will have the option to send in your applications through Common App, Coalition application, University of California applications, college scholarship essays. So the essays that you submit, it's not necessary that it would only help you get admission or impress the admissions committee for that. You will also have the opportunity to get a good amount of scholarship based on the story that you weave through your essays. Okay. So in US and Canada both, there are different kind of essays that they require. In Canada, there would be essays that are university specific, program specific. So when it's university specific, you have to convince the university that this is the best university that matches with my background, and the faculty over there, the research work that is going on, or the clubs over there match best with what my interests are. Next. All right. Yeah. So in UK, Netherlands, and Singapore, the terms are used interchangeably. Basically, these are personal statements that they are looking for. Next. All right, common application essay prompts. Common App, previously, Sumer sir had also explained that this is an application portal that you use to apply to universities in the United States. Okay, so there are 7 prompts that would come into the picture when you're applying to the universities in USA, which has a cap of 20 universities. So the prompts would look like: some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. Okay, so this would be something in you that you want to talk about, you want to explain to the admissions committee, that can make a difference in your application. So I can give you an example of how this can be. So there was a student. He had something, he had interests, he had some creative interests. Okay, so he was into arts and sketching and stuff, but his hobby was categorized as feminine by his friends and the society he was in. And he was also into sciences. Okay, so that thing was kind of hindering his interest in pursuing arts. So he tried to overcome that, and he tried to combine his interest in arts and technology, and tried to take lab experiments on Sundays and to classes on Mondays for arts. Like that, he tried to overcome this thing that the society imposed on him, that art is not something very feminine. He wants to combine both of these interests to pursue his ambition. Next, the lessons we take from obstacles or setbacks. Okay. So here, I think there would be a lot of students who might be able to portray their essay. They would be able to talk about things that have helped them overcome their setbacks. So one example could be that there was a student who was not very tall, okay, and he was kind of mocked for his height. And because of his height, he was not getting good roles in a school play, or he was not getting admitted to his high school soccer team or something. He had aspirations like that. But then he finally, those things discouraged him, and he discussed those things with his friends and family. And then he kind of realized that these limitations are kind of uncontrollable: skin color, height, and other these kind of aspects. He was actually struggling with self image. So these things are kind of uncontrollable, so he should be exploring fields that where he won't be facing limitations due to his height. So he started exploring computer science, started learning programming, coding, and that way he explored this field and did better in that. Okay, so this is an example of it. So like this, based on the prompt that you get, if you can portray a very good narrative of yours that weaves a very good story that can be impressive, that showcases your values, your interests, and how you can add value to the community that you will be joining, that can help. Next. Next slide. Okay. Discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth. All right, so there might be certain events that may spark a certain interest in you in a particular field. Okay, so I can give you an example for this. So there was a student whose father was into politics. Okay, and they were running a campaign about India against corruption. And although his father was a part of that, he felt like his father is continually being part of such campaigns and he's not spending time with him. Okay, so that kind of discouraged him. It did not He did not like that thing. Okay, but later on he realized that it's something important, and it's important for the country and all. Okay, so then he also started to express himself that way, but he was not very strong verbally. He was not able to express himself properly, so he started looking for avenues where he will be able to do it. Okay, so what he did was he started expressing himself through music. So music was his voice, and like that he continued. This is an example of how you can answer this kind of a question. Okay, next. Okay, UC application essays. So UC as in University of California. So in these essays, they would look for things like your creative side, your leadership experience, your talents and skills. So as a part of your leadership experience, you can speak about any any project that you have led, if there's any social project that you have led, if you were heading any research project, those things you can talk about. Maybe you can say that you have a type A personality, you lead by example, how you have managed the clashes between the people you were working with, those things. About your creative side, maybe you are good in music, art, dance, or there would be something that would be in you that you would like to talk about. So those things you can speak of. All right, next. Um, yeah. think about an academic subject that inspires you. So all of you would have a certain subject that does inspire you. For example, computer science. Okay, so maybe you are very much into computer science. You can start talking about subjects that you have learned. You have, maybe you started learning coding from W3 schools. Maybe you have taken a college level course from Cornell. So you have to explain about what motivated you, what was the anecdote uh, that explains why you are interested in this subject, and what you have done in this direction to further your interest. So it depends, like for all these questions, the question that you can answer best based on the challenges you've faced, the contributions you have made, the lessons you have learned, how you have overcome your fears, those things. Next, call it supplemental essays. So apart from the common app essay that you submit, that would typically be 650 worded, there would be certain university specific supplemental essays as well. So that could be typically 250 worded, sometimes 650 worded, but mostly 250 worded. Next. Okay, so we need to talk about why this university. For that, you have to explain things like why you are a good fit for this university, how you will add value to the university and not just benefit from the resources, the faculty, and uh, the facilities you will get from the university. Okay, next. Yeah, so again, the same thing, like how you will add value to the university, not just benefit from it. Maybe you can show intellectual depth, you can show about your intellectual curiosity, depth of interest, how you have contributed academically, how you have contributed to the community. Those things you can emphasize while answering these questions. Next. All right. So universities also have certain quirky questions that help them understand how you are as a person beyond academics. The other things were also beyond academics, but this thing is more kind of a personal thing. So this could include things like what is the first song you would play for your roommates when they move in. Questions also include things like what is the dish that you would prepare for the admissions committee? What is the advice you might give to a wisdom tooth? So these kind of questions also come up. Next. Yeah. So like I said before, the essays don't just portray who you are. Some essays also help you get good amount of scholarships. Okay, so there you have to talk about your achievements, what is your need for the scholarship, your economic background, how you can add diversity to the student community over there. These things you need to emphasize in order to explain the university that yeah, you are a deserving candidate for the scholarship. Next. Okay, so important points on writing an essay or SOP. So in an essay, it has to be structured. It doesn't have to be always about academics, but in your SOP, you will find that the prompts usually push you to write about your research interests, career goals, your fit with the program, how your interests align with the university's developments. Next. All right. So it's very important to have a very good opening line. You can't really have an opening line that doesn't push the reader to read somewhere. Okay. So an opening line cannot be things like I have always been interested in computer science, or I've always been interested in psychology. You need to make it more captivating. Like, suppose there was a competition that happened back in 2016 and that left indelible imprints in the canvas of my life. Things like that you have to speak about. Next. Next. Yeah, while writing the essays or writing an SOP, you need to maintain a flow. It has to be cohesive. You can't really diverge from the main topic. when you are writing the first line of a particular paragraph and then concluding it, there has to be a line that concludes it, right? And then the next line also, when you start from the next paragraph, again that has to maintain a flow. It cannot diverge. So yeah, the middle paragraphs should be cohesive, and then you should be writing a concluding paragraph as well. It doesn't have to be a summary, but yeah, it should remain consistent with the rest of the essay. Next, expression. Yeah, so essays are basically the voice of your application, the your communication style, whether you're imaginative, creative, and analytical, if you're a critical thinker or not. So those things are portrayed when you are writing these essays and sending this application to the universities. It basically shows how you will communicate with the faculty, your peers in the university. Next. All right. So there's a saying that to write is human and to edit is divine. So the first draft won't be the best all the time, but the more edits you make, the better the draft gets. And also, you should be checking the facts that you write. The things that you write should be factually correct. Next. Okay. So the essays that you write, uh, that should be showcasing your passion for the subject, your chosen field of study. What is your motivation for it? Focusing on ideas around who, what, where, why, and how. Then there should be a logical, chronological order that you should be following, and obviously you can't uh, end the essay off the bat. You should be writing a concluding paragraph, and yeah, it should be authentic. It should be adding a human touch to your application. Next. Next. Okay. So there are a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing. The most prominent thing is plagiarism. You can't really copy things. You can't really just go on ChatGPT and use that text directly. Last minute work really doesn't help, because the essay that you will be writing, that should be speaking with that, you should be connecting with the university admissions committee on a deeper level. So that doesn't happen at the last minute. That essay, that kind of an essay, shows that it has been written that way. um, you can't really choose overused essay topic. Don't start your essay with taboo topics like death of a grandparent or something. Just write about things that motivate you. Okay, and it shouldn't be dark. All right. And yeah, the more you read, the more research you do about the college, faculty, community, the better your essays can be. Next. All right, so we will be concluding this with this link we have shared. If you follow this link, you will find an essay that helped a student get into 5 Ivy Leagues. Yeah, so that's it from my side. Jitin sir will be taking over from here.
Specifically with regard to the questions, specifically there are a few more questions. So Pratibha has asked, I write a few articles and post them on an app. Can I share that in my essay? Better to share it in the external activities section. Arjun has specifically asked that, do Harvard does Harvard consider financial aids? Yes, and in fact Harvard is need blind, so it will not give you a disadvantage if you're applying to a or to Harvard specifically for admissions. If I scored low in class 10th but my excellent marks in 12th predicted, can I get into universities in UK? So Aruj, the thing is that we would have to see how low have you scored in your 10th also overall with regard to everything. So I would suggest that you can, just discuss with us over an online meeting or a physical meeting specifically, and we can just discuss one on one with you overall in this regard. Neelam has asked, So, what all countries are having maximum chances of getting full scholarships. Specifically, Neelam, if you are applying, you should be applying to the US, you should be applying to Abu Dhabi, you should also be applying to Australia. These three
Also,
places,
Hong Kong University of Science and Technology
science
also.
and technology,
So they
Hong
also
Kong
give very good
University,
scholarships to Indian
yes,
students. Yeah. Okay, one
CUH,
last word. I
APU.
just need to go, guys, and Sumer will take it on. So one last word from my side. We deliver the best profile building and study abroad services. You can. I've got clients who are not only from India, from Singapore, Qatar, Kuwait, Dubai, Oman, a lot of places, and of course in India I've got clients from Agra, Aligarh, Moradabad, Sonipat, Bombay, Pune, and so on. So, if you want the best profile building services, if you want the best application services, I've got amazing writers. We do everything in house. I've got people who will look at your financial returns. I look at people who look at scholarships. Arushi Anand, our student, has got 1 crore 44 lakh scholarship. I've got a student who's got $1 lakh scholarship. So we like fight for you till the very end. We uh, uh, we have got amazing team members who have been helping students for the last anything from 6 to 20 years to go to topmost foreign university. So if you want to book a free session in the next 1 hour, you can just message on this number 8826019410. You can just send a WhatsApp or a message on this number, and we'll have a session with Sumer or his team free of charge if you message in the next 1 hour. I will need to go, but Sumer will continue the questions. So, any other questions you can just ask Sumer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jatin sir. Right. So continuing with the Q&A, Sonia Goel has asked, can we discuss about Netherlands? Of course. So Netherlands, is very well known for courses within computer science, engineering, humanities, social sciences, all of those kind of domains. Economics does very well. In fact, they have very super specialized areas within economics that one can do their undergraduate degree in as well. Typically, but with the Netherlands, you can apply to a maximum of four universities or four courses. So that means that maybe you're taking two universities where you're applying to two different courses in each university as such, or it can be a total of four universities with one course each comparatively. However, the Netherlands also has another process in place which is called numerous fixes. So, for example, if you're applying to a program which is numerous fixes, which is wherein their entire, the amount of people who are in applying to that particular program is capped as such. So, you may have to write an entrance exam. So, that is called numerous fixes. So, under that scenario, you cannot apply to more than two universities or two courses in numerous fixes as a maximum, and the remaining two have to be non-numerous fixes. So this is how the Netherlands specifically goes. The Netherlands typically looks at your class 10th, your 11th, your 12th marks. In certain universities, you may have to also write a mathematical test, which is the OMPTA or an OMPTB or something on those particular lines, depending on whichever the university specifically asks you. The top-notch universities would be University of Amsterdam, University of Groningen, University of Erasmus University of Rotterdam, Tilburg University. Such kind of institutions specifically do very well. VU Amsterdam is also there as such. University of Twente. So such kind of universities are doing very well over there comparatively. So you can definitely look into those particular options as well. In comparison, one side note that I would like to give to you is that the Netherlands, most of the universities do not accept physical education as the fifth subject. So you have to make sure that the subjects that you have are the regular courses overall, within your CBSEs or your ISCs or your IBs comparatively. So this is how we specifically look into the field of to Netherlands comparatively. So how can we apply for scholarships in USA and Australia? So as I explained initially, you may have to, if you're applying for a financial aid overall comparatively. So need blind or need aware is what you have to specifically look at. It is only available in private universities, and only some private universities, public universities do not give private financial aid to international students. uh, Coming on to this particular aspect within need blind, if you're applying for a scholarship, your need for a scholarship will not be factored into the admission decision. That means there is no disadvantage. Within need aware, it will be focused on to your admission decision as well. In Australia, there are certain universities that specifically give an automatic scholarship. Some universities you may have to apply with an essay comparatively. The same cases with the US as well, and they have merit based scholarships as well. Bipin, if you can become an astrobiologist without taking math and only taking physics, chemistry, biology in the US, because the US is a based application. So that means that if you're the most rigorous student in your school, in your city, and in your country, it can be possible. There might be certain challenges, but we can still gun for it overall as such. Right. I think that takes us to the end of this webinar. Thank you so much. I'm very impressed with the audience. We've been asking a lot of questions, and I'm very happy to answer all of them. As you know, specifically, this session is coming to an end, but we'll be still taking your queries. You can connect with us on the numbers that have been flashing below, and we can definitely just discuss, find out the best possible options for you, move forward in terms of helping you craft your profile, craft your applications, help you with your essays, give you advice on anything and everything overall. And that is how we will move forward. Right. It has been lovely interacting with you. Thank you so much. It's time to end. Thank you. Bye.